We need something though for our debut episode. We need a cold opening because a lot of these always have a cold opening before the intro. So,
okay.
So you need to come up with a cold opening right now.
So what cold opening?
A cold opening, yeah.
So with me saying Super Mario Brothers is the best film adaptation, computer game adaptation. No, sorry, I meant first, not best. That'd be a good opening, wouldn't it? What do you think?
Yeah. Okay, that would do. Hello everyone, and welcome to this debut podcast episode thingy.
Hello.
Of Screen Flickers.
Did my hello sound convincing?
I think people would believe that was a genuine hello.
Is it Screen Flickers or Screen Flicker? Because I was to understand it was going to be Screen Flicker.
Well, I think we are the Screen Flickers.
So
we're a flicker.
Okay.
We're each a flicker, so together we're flickers.
Okay, yeah, I entirely disagree with that, but let's move on.
We also have to be very careful what the logo looks like, because if the L and the I look too close together, it's going to call ourselves Screen Flickers.
I thought that was why we went for it. It's like Tracy Flick in Election.
Oh, sorry, correction, Screen Flicker.
Yeah. So basically, the premise of these podcasts are that I think we noticed that computer game adaptations of films. Film adaptations of computer games.
Yeah.
Are universally bad, or at least seem to be
that way. Yeah.
And even though the highest rated one, I think, is Tomb Raider. Although I think one of the Resident Evil films.
That's probably the most profitable one, I think.
Prince of Persia, I think it might be the most profitable one, but even that was a bit of a flop. You might be right about Tomb Raider, actually. It would have helped if we'd looked this up before.
I have a feeling that Prince of Persia was probably the better received, as in better reviewed, but Tomb Raider was the most, financially successful.
That's true, and there's a lot in the pipeline. There are always a lot in the pipeline, but the fact is that up to this point, nobody is expecting them to be any good. And I just wondered why this was. There's no reason why a film adaptation of a computer game would inherently be worse than a film adaptation of, say, a novel or anything else, really. I mean, people say, oh, it's because computer games are interactive and films aren't, but that's a kind of a really that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, because novels differ from films in another different way. You could argue that novels are interactive as well, in that they require you to use your imagination. There's a way that you engage with a book that you don't necessarily with a film or a TV series.
Yeah, there's also, and people with books, you the reader has their own interpretation in mind, and so you're almost like you describe what the character looks like, so that person puts together what they look like in their head, and then when somebody else casts somebody completely different to who you thought, be like, hang on, that's not right. Yeah, there's actually a great deal that can go wrong in a book adaptation when you think about it.
Yeah, that's very powerful. So, I mean, I kind of get people's point there, but, there's just something that people just can't seem to get right. I think later on we'll probably find that, part of the reason why the adaptations are bad is that computer games have been feeding off films now for a long while, and some of the more popular computer games, like Tomb Raider, for example, are basically like an Indiana Jones computer game. But in the early days, I should get to the point. What we're going to do, we're going to watch every single computer game adaptation from the beginning, just to see why they fail, and do they get better as they go along?
Yeah.
Or is there, does it go up and down? Is it like a kind of...
I'm looking forward to, because I haven't watched every single video game adaptation. I've watched a couple. I've seen Tomb Raider, and I saw Mario Brothers when it was in the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested to find out if there's any hidden nuggets out there. But do you know what? That was bloody good, that one. But I won't be too optimistic. But
looking
fingers
at the
crossed.
list, I'm actually surprised by the number of them that I have watched.
Right.
I don't know, but it's more a case of I'm just not really that discriminate in what I watch. I'll gladly pop anything on, really.
Right. I think we should also introduce ourselves.
Oh, yes, sorry.
My name is Eddie Bowley. I I mean, this is going to go up on my YouTube channel, so presumably my subscribers already know who I am. But those who don't, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, I'm a voice actor. I do stuff for Tom's Car, for Ed's World, for Weeple stuff. And I got my own stuff involving shark puppets and crows. That's kind of what I do.
And it's brilliant. I love all your stuff, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Joel. And who are you, Joel?
I am also a writer. This is boring, isn't it? It'd be better if one of us was like in a different field. You know, like, I'm a particle physicist.
And I'm a ski instructor.
I mostly do television writing, usually children's television writing. I've written a couple of books. Torture and Gnomes were my books,
Okay.
Not combined together. And I've just adaptation of Sherlock Holmes stories into a sort of a slightly interactive format. That's just come out as well. I have done some online stuff with you and with John T. Picking Weeble. I think we both worked with him on a few things, and I love online animations and things like that. So I'm hoping to do some more. I love films and television, and I love computer games as well. As do you, sir, because we're sitting at the moment in your office, which is literally, it's like a little Aladdin's cave of computer games and amiibos. It's beautiful, really.
Yeah, this is kind of, I mean, I've been living in this house for a couple of months now, and one of the first things I said was like, this room is my room. And I guess this is my office, and everyone calls it what it is, a man cave.
Yes.
But it's got all my games. It's got all my this is my happy place. This is like where I keep all my business side of things, and it's kind of a place where I can sit and be inspired and in a sort of an uplifting environment. So I'm surrounded by things that are nostalgic and things that evoke nice emotions in me, which I find conducive to writing.
Arrested development, I think, is what you mean.
Right.
It's like return to my childhood. It's more like a sort of a game womb.
Game womb.
Yeah, I don't know if I should be saying this. I worry now that we're going to end up at loggerheads before we even get to talking about the first film.
Yes, so let's talk about the first film, which is Super Mario Brothers.
Now, this surprised me that Super Mario Brothers was the first film, because when we set out to do this, I went and looked up to see, all the video game adaptations.
Because we're going to do them in order. We're going to do it from the very first one to the very recent one. Hopefully, more will come out by the time we get to the recent one.
No, that's right. This is potentially an infinite task, especially because we're unlikely to record these more than, we're not going to be doing like one a day or something. So, at the pace that we're going, monthly. More ones will be coming out as we go along, and we might be sitting here when we're 80. Although, by then I would have hoped that, you would have moved. No, I'm kidding. Because you live too far away from my house.
Oh, right.
No, so you've got a lovely house.
We'll be recording in what would probably be my child's bedroom instead, because I've had to give up my room.
Or your grandchild's bedroom.
Or maybe.
And then they'll be like, get out, Grandad. I want to play space something. Into the future, everything's space.
I want to talk about the Tomb Raider 4!
So I assume there would be lots of 80s computer game adaptations, because it's not to say obviously computer games first became popular late 70s. That was when they really started to kick off. Obviously you had the computer game crash in 83.
Yeah.
But after that point it did start to come up again, especially with the dominance of Nintendo.
Well, that was the blame on of movie adaptation.
No, that's
a
right.
Video game movie adaptation. That was E.T.'s fault.
But the thing is, we have some rules on this. One rule is that we're not doing computer game films that are based around a fictionalized computer game, because that's not interesting to me.
Yeah.
So Tron is out. Tron, which is often widely recognized to be one of the best films about video games, or at least that most captures that feel of those 80s classic games, is out.
And it has to be a proper adaptation. It can't be something like The Wizard, which does involve computer games, but is not an adaptation of a video game.
No, that's right.
It also can't, and with that same ruling, we can't do something like Wreck-It Ralph, which is a multi-character crossover about video games, but not a video game adaptation.
But the good thing is that also means we don't have to do pixels. I didn't plan it that way. It's just an unintended benefit.
Yes, and we're very blessed for that. Okay, so we literally just rewatched Super Mario Brothers. We've both seen it before. The last time I saw the film was at the cinema when it first came out. When did it first come out? Like the 90s?
1993.
So that's when I saw it for the first time, and I never saw it again until earlier today.
I have rewatched it several times since I first saw it, so I have seen it. I saw it with fresher eyes before we saw it today. Uh-huh. So yours was more the newer perspective, whereas my eye has cast over it many times and has developed a cataract.
I mean, I've seen like scenes and bits, and like I've seen references to it. I've seen like the Nostalgia Critic review it before, and this kind of thing. So there's a few bits that I remember from having seen those bits, but there's as the film as a whole, this was the first time in 2 decades that I've actually sat down and watched it again. So we're going to do this in a bit more of a, I guess, somewhat of a structure. So we're going to talk about how does it stand as a movie. Forgetting the adaptation part, how does it just stand as a movie, Joel?
Okay. Well, as you said, when it came out, we were very young. I was 13 at the time. It's funny, for some reason I imagined myself being young, because the fact is I actually quite enjoyed it. I quite liked it when I was younger, and I would like to try and figure out why, because watching it again, I can see I still think that it's not a terror. I've certainly seen worse films. I've certainly seen more boring films, that's for sure. This is, I think, going to be the strangest film adaptation, computer game adaptation we watch, because it really has very little relation at all to the original game. I mean, I think that you can... Oh no, but we're not talking about that yet. We're talking about it as a film itself.
As a movie. We'll get to adaptation, but as a movie.
Okay, well, obviously, I don't know, maybe my standards were pretty low when I was younger. I did like the Bill and Ted films, but I think those are recognised.
Yeah, those are kind of cult classics.
I'm just trying to think of some other terrible things that I liked when I was younger, but it hits a bunch of buttons. It hits it has a sort of fairly standard sort of action kind of setup. You've got your main characters, they get sucked into this other world, they go on this sort of adventure. You've got your MacGuffin, you've got the crystal, you've got like a bad guy, the bad guy's assistant who betrays him. It kind of hits a lot of very standard plot points. I mean, obviously, this is 93, so this kind of thing, the adventure film, it's like not like if it had come out in like the 70s or something, pre-Star Wars, so this kind of adventure film would not be that well established. But Star Wars, it's after the 80s, with these kind of things, these sort of adventure films a bit like the Goonies and things like that, which is another film about this is kind of a very standard narrative for children's films anyway, this idea of normal people being sucked into a fantasy world. It just so happens that the fantasy world in this case is kind of a weird dinosaur-themed urban nightmare.
But I was saying as I was watching it, like they stress that it opens up with with this thick Brooklyn Philips CDI looking pixel intro sequence, which I think is meant to nod to the games, but not quite. There's like, one of all the dinosaurs did not die out, but they got hit by this meteorite. They split the earth in two into this parallel dimension. It's like, what? Like, what? How does... I mean, even with the batshit pseudoscience, which you could let go for a kids' film.
Yeah.
That's like, what? And then, okay, fine. Let's just sake of argument, it's somehow created a parallel dimension. Like, it couldn't have just like had the dinosaurs go to like the center of the earth, like a center of the earth kind of thing.
That would have made it about as much sense.
Yeah, but no, they said it's a parallel dimension. They actually transport to a new dimension. So even if you forgive that, when they turn up, they say it's a dinosaur world, but it's not very dinosaur world. It just looks like Manhattan gone wrong, like as if crime has won, like as if a crime lord, which I guess has, in this film's case, has won the election and is in charge of the city, and so the city's just going to shit. Law and order's completely, it's just chaos.
Yeah.
And so you still have the taxis and the police cars and the clubbing and the nightlife and like all these characters in the kind of wild costumes that are very 90s, this sort of red with spikes and leather jackets and frayed jeans and this kind of thing. But it's scarcely dinosaur. The only dinosaur nods or even lizard nods are like, you see a few small dinosaurs, which I guess are kind of like their rats. And they eat like small lizards on sticks, and you're meant to go, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But it's because they're a dinosaur. But it just doesn't come across as very dinosaur.
And then there was that weird bit that really made you laugh when there's the lady pushing the egg in the pram, and the guy comes over and just sort of goes to like touch the egg.
It's just this weird bit. I think it's just to establish it's a really unsavoury city.
Yeah.
But bearing in mind, of this city, we only really see like 2 bridges and a road. And then the rest is indoors.
Yeah, I know. It's clearly it's a very set-like. It really reminded me of the mega city in the Judge Dredd film that they made, the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd film. It kind of has that kind of really fakey dystopian city feel to it. Funnily enough, the guy who did that, Les Tompkins, did production design on the Judge Dredd film.
Right.
But he worked on things like the Batman movie and just quite a few Tim Burton films. And he knew my dad. He also did a bunch of films with Stanley Kubrick. And I was invited to go to the set of Judge Dredd. And I've got to say, although the film itself was pretty ropey, the set, being on the set if you're a kid, was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's really cool to see. And I walked to the foot of like the fake Statue of Liberty there and things like that. So, you know, I think I wouldn't say that this isn't necessarily a location that a kid would want to visit. You know, I think that it can be kind of interesting in a way, you know, these kind of urban nightmare kind of settings. And I think another film which influenced this was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes. Yeah, it's absolutely of that era.
I think in the styling.
Yeah, they're kind of really cool kids kind of thing. Actually, I just realised that for a film that is kind of clearly geared to like children and young adults, everyone's an adult. Like, there are no kids in this film. Like, I guess the closest you have is Luigi.
That's a good point, actually.
Who's just meant to be, I guess, a teenager.
Yeah, he's
kind of
young at heart.
Yeah.
And you got Yoshi as well. You know, you got
Yoshi,
baby dinosaur.
Out and out Yoshi, best thing of that damn film. Like, every scene that Yoshi was on, I was squeeing into life because he's adorable.
That was your favourite element. He's like a lovable raptor.
Yeah.
I think that's what you liked about him.
Yes, like he's everything I love in a dinosaur.
This film came out the same year as Jurassic Park.
Oh,
I mean, what does that tell you about, you know, the...
Well, especially if you saw like Mario first, it'd be like, oh, I mean, even though I think Jurassic Park came out first. We saw Mario first, like, oh, that dinosaur's so cute. Oh, another film about dinosaurs. That's going to be so cute.
Oh dear.
But yeah, this egg thing, it's just so weird because there's just this bit where these thugs come up to this woman and then they just start like slapping her egg. And she's like, get off, and they run off and stuff.
Touch your egg, I touch your egg.
It's like, what were they gonna... It's like if this was... is this a parallel to the human world? Because what? Criminals just come up to women and just slap their baby's face and then run off?
Don't do it.
You know, so
I think what we should definitely point out at this point that a pointy point that the film went through a bunch of different hands as it was in development. It was originally apparently the script was going to be more faithful. I mean, we can cover this when we're talking about it as an adaptation, but it kind of fell into the hands of a husband-wife directing team called Rocky Morton and Annabel Jankel, and these guys were known. They worked on television series Max Headroom. I believe you're aware of the character Max Headroom.
I know of him, but I can't say I've actually seen him in action.
Well, you should watch. You could watch the first thing that they made, because I remember seeing that when I was younger, and it wasn't just that was quite influential on, funny enough, the look of British television in the 80s, particularly youth television, because it kind of had this sort of dystopian media-based future. And you know, it was quite a nasty future, really. Like horrifying things like people exploding because they watch these high-speed adverts, and even more horrifying than that, people eating beans cold from a can, which is the nightmarish dystopia where people might do that. But you know, you could see it's a stylish. It's a film, really. It's a TV film, the first thing, and then it was adapted into a Canadian television series done with like an almost entirely different cast, apart from Matt Frewer, who plays both like the main character Elliot something and Max Headroom. but everybody else was sort of changed. But that kind of carried on the same style, this kind of weird dystopian, media crazy kind of future. Mm-hmm. So you can sort of see why they thought, oh, you know, these guys, they've got an interesting vision, you know, it would make for, you know, quite a stylish film. But the problem is that they didn't, you know, if they'd then taken that and then applied it to something that was faithful to the Mario world, maybe that could have been unusual or interesting. But it does seem like there was, I think you said this, like there was a pre-existing script. Like there was a script for some world called Dino World or something like that. And they were like, hey, let's just make that, slap a bunch of Mario names on it.
They probably, maybe it was a failed project. I mean, this just dredged into adaptation territory, which we might as well go into. Mm-hmm. But, so it feels like... Okay, so let me just backtrack. So as a film, mm-hmm. the plot is of these two guys who go through a parallel dimension into an alternative world where it's kind of dinosaur influenced, where this tyrannical leader is, well, I guess he's not really doing anything harmful to the people. They're quite, you know, for a planet that's entirely desert apart from one city, they're not doing too bad actually.
I like your reaction was like, they've been on there for 6 million years and they've built one city.
I didn't say that. I said 65 million years.
Okay, now I'm sorry. I withdraw my scientifically inaccurate.
They had even more time than that. So it doesn't seem to be too tyrannical to its people, apart from the fact that if they...
Tyrannical, I like it.
Apart from the fact that if they betray him or they annoy him in whatever way, mm-hmm. he would de-evolve them into these tiny head monsters, which they pretend are Goombas. And so the Mario Brothers have to go in because they've kidnapped Luigi's kind of girlfriend, who he's known for maybe a day, but it's enough for him to risk his life to go and save her because she has the key to unlock this meteorite that will rejoin the universes so that Koopa can take over the world. Mm-hmm. So as a movie, it's a bloody mess.
Yes,
and I think that falls into the idea that the directors, apart from the directors, who did not get along with anyone. Everyone hated the directors.
That's right.
This is well known.
Bob Hoskins said that it was, in fact, the worst film he ever worked on.
Yeah, I think an interview came out saying what's the worst movie you've ever done? Mario Brothers.
Mario Brothers.
do you have any life regrets? Do you have any life regrets? Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
So it feels like they had. And so now to talk about it as an adaptation, it felt like they had a pre-existing script, perhaps one that was rejected before, and they just, since getting this gig, applied the Mario references on top because of how little it actually bears resemblance to the game.
Yeah.
So the nearest you get are you get a few sound effects that crop up which are kind of incorrectly placed.
I know, that's right. It's almost, that's like grit in the eye, isn't it? It's almost like deliberately annoying. It's like, well, a one-up sound would not be there.
They don the costumes at one point. They put on boots that help them jump high. They have guns that help them fire fireballs. So it felt like and also like all the locations were named other things. There was a place called Thwomp. There was another place called Bullet Bills.
Yeah.
So it felt like they kind of very loosely applied all the Mario lore on top of this film, and it did not click because it opens up and the view of Brooklyn, modern day Brooklyn, it's very gritty. It's very grimy. It's very dark, especially when they go into the actual the dig site that she was working on. It's very dark and it's very dull, and so you're thinking, well, that's okay because maybe when they go to the dinosaur world, that would juxtapose it. You go, that's kind of reality, and then we go into fantasy.
Yeah.
But
like Wizard of Oz,
Yeah, and so it would be kind of in keeping with Mario Brothers, it would be bright and colourful. For the greens and blues and stuff like that. But no, it's darker, it's grittier, it's grimier, it's worse.
It's funny.
And it's why would you want to save this?
To put my pseudo-intellectual hat on, I did discuss, I was like, do you think that this is referencing, you know, the New York in the 70s versus New York sort of in the 90s, the more sanitized New York? You know, that New York in the 70s, obviously, there was a lot of problems with crime, with corruption, with, you know, the city almost went bankrupt. And so the idea is that the dinosaur world is that old kind of gritty, but somehow more authentic and sort of very, very stylish New York versus the more sanitized but safer New Yorker today. And I've decided, no, probably not, to be honest. I think the whole thing's just a big mess.
It is a complete mess. Like, as a movie and as an adaptation, the film is a mess. It's all over the place. The comedy beats are like just they fall flat or they just don't work. There's just some really weird creative decisions made. And
one thing that you noticed was Alan Silvestri did the soundtrack for this, and he, of course, did the soundtrack for Back to the Future.
Yes.
And but so you know there are a lot of talented people involved in this, but he seems to have written two music tracks, which they then just employ almost, you know, irregardless.
There's
as
a
George
weird
Bush
bit.
would say.
Yeah.
Of,
there was a weird bit though when the characters have just arrived at the construction site and the music's going ape shit. Like it's doing this kind of like really quirky little music track, but they're just talking. And it's like, wait, what? Why are you doing that? Like, that's more, it felt more like it should have been for a chase scene, which it did. It happened again during the chase scene in the police cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird when I mean, that's not new to Mario. Like, I remember a film, and I can't remember its name, unfortunately, but there's a bit where a character just, it's in like, the first time they started using colour in movies for the first time, like, not Wizard of Oz, but like it's a colour, like an classic American movie, and all the character is doing is walking across the room, but the music's going like it's all whimsical and stuff. It's like he's just walking, like
calm down.
But I do like that. I do appreciate that there are a few nods in there that they did work in. With stuff like the Cooper car is kind of there because Cooper ends up in this metal drum type thing that's suspended on chains, and it's clearly meant to allude to the Cooper car. And then when he's thrown in there, when he's de-evolved, he comes out as a dragon monster, which you made the excellent point was that this would have been a great chance for the movie to have another phase of the villain to fight. So they fought the villain, they fought Dennis Hopper as Dennis Hopper, and then
which is terrifying in itself.
And then they knock him into the car, and he comes out, and he's more monstrous. But it only happens for a brief second because they just shoot him or whatever. Like they could have done like a phase 2 fight, which would have been very video game. It's not really Mario, not really like Mario 1 or Mario 3. Like those bosses just tend to be one phase and then that's it. But it would have been very video game to have a multi-phase boss. So you fight him as a human type, and then you fight him as this, and it could have been a lot more like his Bowser dragon.
Yeah, that's right.
With spikes and stuff, but he still just kind of looks like a weird CGI T-Rex.
Yeah.
And it's just over in a snap, and it's just like I think this film in a nutshell is wasted opportunity.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it's funny thinking back again to why I liked it when I was younger. I did like, as you were talking about, the things like, you know, the jumping boots, the fireball firing guns, the things which kind of take elements from Super Mario and like turn them into gadgets, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed gadgets when I was younger. Well, you know, one of the first films I really enjoyed when I was a kid was Ghostbusters. So it comes back to I love, you know, like strange gadgets, and so that aspect of the film appealed to me. But it's just, again, it kind of didn't really connect that much to. They had these gadgets, but they hardly used them. You know, it's not like he's jumping around in the jumping boots all the time, or you know, he has a fireball, you know, gun and he's using it all the time. It's just they existed in this world. So, yeah, but wasted potential, totally.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, even on its own terms, as a film about this kind of dinosaur planet, with taking the Mario stuff aside, it's not a particularly satisfying film. It's all over the place, and you can see that it's had kind of too many cooks. And again, it's funny. The one of the scriptwriters is Ed Solomon, who worked on the Bill and Ted films, which are about two kind of wisecracking people going around time and space, and then later on did Men in Black, which is about two wisecracking people, like getting involved in sort of like similar adventures. So it's almost like this was sort of like a blip in his career in the middle.
Yeah. I think there's only so much you can do sometimes with a concept, and there's just other weird creative decisions, like having this de-evolving and evolving thing as a threat. So whenever they capture people, they de-evolve them into Goombas, and they call them Goombas, but they're like 8 foot tall. Not like the small chestnut things that you get in the game. Like these are giant things with tiny heads. It's like they've taken the Goomba and made it opposite.
Yeah.
Instead of short and round and fat, it's tall and with a tiny head.
Well, yeah.
Like Beetlejuice, like the pinheads from Beetlejuice.
I think, like we said, it does seem like they just took the names and slapped them on things which don't necessarily have any connection. Like you got Toad in there, but he's like a busker. Like a sort of a strange busking guy.
Who then turns into a Goomba.
Yeah.
So the use of like the weapons, so like the NES the NES Zapper and the Super Scope make appearances in the film. Bombs as well. I mean, it's just all they feel more like awkward cameos that are just kind of thrown in as like, that's the Mario thing. Like it doesn't detract from the what the movie is doing. In terms of storytelling, it's just kind of bits to kind of glitter you with either nostalgia or just I guess at the time a pop culture reference. Be like, sure. I know that thing. But I'm happy. The
film itself is so misguided that these references just sink. It's like glitter on a dog turd, basically. It's like they might think the kids would love this stuff, but they're surrounded with such kind of I mean I liked it when I was younger, and I liked the Mario Brothers thing as well. So I suppose it's possible some other children enjoyed it, but I think maybe I was just a bit of an aberration as a child.
I will say though that I like Bob Hoskins. Like I know it seems weird that Mario is being played as this cantankerous old man who's constantly complaining, but I feel like it's because it's Bob Hoskins.
Yes.
I feel it's because it's Eddie Valiant. He's doing his Eddie Valiant bit. I think it's because of that. I was quite endeared to him. And,
sure.
And what's his name? John
Leguizamo.
Yeah, thank you.
I was used to say Leguizamo, but it's Leguizamo apparently.
He was fine. Like it was. Like nothing really that kind of like that grabbing or anything like that as a performance. Like he did sufficiently fine. Again, I feel like you dealt with what you served. So, but I felt endeared by him, even though he wasn't like wahoo, let's go. Like he was just like, come on, you goddamn idiot. What am I gonna do with you? That was fine. I like that. I
did want to say that the one thing they got really right in this, and that they clearly put a lot of work into, is the plumbing. It's that so much of the film is, but they really sat down and thought, if a plumber became an action hero, how could he apply his plumbing skills and knowledge to problems? So there keeps being, like references to plumbing's philosophy, them having tools, them like coming across situations where their plumbing skills get to help. They turn off the pipes or they alter the pipes in the building. There's loads of plumbing stuff in there. That's solid. That is the
Yeah, that's fair. They used enough plumbing stuff to really establish the point that they are plumbers.
Yeah.
But there's one weird bit that the transport into the dinosaur world, it's okay. So in the game, it would be a pipe. It would be a green pipe, and that's fine because Mario and Luigi are plumbers. But in the movie, it's a wall. It's a wall that's like a wibbly wobbly wall, and it was supposed to sort of transport through it.
It's
like,
funny.
Why did they use a pipe? Like they were like underground. They could be like a big sewage pipe. It could be like a rabbit hole type thing, like Alice in Wonderland. You crawl through the pipe and you emerge in this other world.
Well, yes, it's funny because you pointed out earlier. There's a scene where Luigi's lying on the couch and he puts one of those, the thing. It's made up of metal pins, and when you push through it, and he puts that on his face, and that is the same effect that they have later, and they're in the wall. So I don't know if that's actually a deliberate reference or
maybe
not.
It was,
but it's like something none more 80s than that. Really.
I don't think anyone saw that film and saw that bit with her face coming out the wall and thought, it's just like that pin bit from the beginning of the film.
Well, I did. So there.
They probably thought, the CGI looks a bit weird here.
Yeah, that's ropey. I mean, again, the special effects are all over the place.
But Yoshi looked great.
The practical effects are much better.
Yeah, Yoshi looked fantastic.
Did Rick Baker do some work on this? I feel like he might have.
Maybe, but even now, I would argue that looks great. Because you can tell it's a prosthetic puppet, and it's adorable. I love Yoshi.
So you'd watch just a whole film just about Yoshi the dinosaur?
I would watch a supercut of Mario Brothers that was solely about Yoshi.
And he gets stabbed as well, man. He goes through the most brutal arc. He's like a slave. He gets stabbed, then he's rescued. He saves somebody. He's got the most compelling story out.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Oh, poor Yoshi. So, I feel like we've covered a lot about the film and how it acts as an adaptation. So, let's put on our writers' hats and pretend we're movie writers for a second, and suggest, what would we do? What would Joel and I do to write a successful, in speech marks, movie based on Mario?
This is an interesting challenge because obviously the question is, are we talking about if it had been 1993 and it had been us making this film, or are we talking about making a film now, knowing what we know now, so over 20 years later?
Yeah, I would say if you were given the challenge to make a movie now.
Okay. Well, see, my conception of it, I feel like I hate to say it, but like a sort of a deconstruction of something. So I'm saying that you basically have a film about Mario. You say that he's been rescuing Princess Toadstool. We'll have her as Toadstool in this one, and not Daisy. And we were talking about why they picked Daisy, and we think it might be because Daisy's a more plausible name for somebody to have in the modern day, but also because she has the romance with Luigi.
Yeah.
And Daisy is Luigi's love interest.
Well, I don't think that's ever canon. I don't think that's official Mario canon. I think that's just a canon that everyone's assumed, but I don't believe that's official Mario canon.
Oh, sure.
Daisy's also the heroine in the damsel in distress, shall I say? Mario having a heroine.
Yeah. Mario taking heroin, much more plausible.
But she's the damsel in Super Mario Land, the Game Boy game.
That's true.
That's the only appearance of Daisy in the lore of Mario before that point.
Yeah.
They kind of brought her back and made her, I say fleshed out as her own character, but in as much as any Mario character that's ever been fleshed out ever. But so yes, go on.
Okay, yes. So the way that I'd see it, sorry, I shouldn't have said Toadstool, I should have said Peach, and we might have complaints about that.
It's both,
but yeah, I think both are legitimate. So basically, we have this idea that Mario's been rescuing her for a long time, and then we're thrown into a situation where Luigi's kidnapped, which, yes, I do know happens in the games, and so Mario and Peach have to team up to rescue Luigi. And then you can have a film based around the fact that Mario and Peach, despite the fact that, I'm just saying this is in the film world, please, don't write and tell me that, canonically in the games they've actually spent a lot of time together, but in this film the idea is that Mario's been rescuing her for a long time, but he's never actually kind of sat down and had a proper conversation with her, and that in the process of rescuing Luigi we can have this kind of adventure romance between the two of them, as she kind of shows different ways of solving the adventure, and then you just have a proper adventure romance through the Mushroom Kingdom to visit as many different locations as possible, loads of characters, loads of interactions, just very funny, almost a Pixar take on Super Mario, but with him teaming up with Peach rather than Luigi. And then you can have a lot of humour from, Luigi having been kidnapped by Bowser and keep cutting back to the castle with Luigi trying to escape and stuff like that, like a B plot. That's the way I do it.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Now, I'd say for me, there's been a lot more of the lore of Mario since the 90s. So we've had all the RPG games that have got a great deal of humour in them, and they really kind of they more so with the Bowser character, they really flesh him out to be like this a really arrogant, but in a comedic way. So he's like, oh yeah, I'm great, I'm so great, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very much like Strong Bad in the Homestar Runner series.
Oh, sure.
And
There you go.
Oh man, the shit.
That's a good Strong Bad.
But and Luigi has been fleshed out to be this very cowardly character, like to the point where he's like many people's favourites because he's the only character with character. So
He's flawed.
Yeah, it's like Mario's such an all-round nice guy. Like there's nothing interesting about him. He just serves the purpose.
Yeah.
Whereas Luigi actually has a bit of character to him. He's just the neurotic, terrified guy. Like so he has to do all the scary stuff. So there's been a lot more developed of the characters since that
Mario
film.
is super. Luigi is human.
Ooh.
Sorry, I didn't.
So I think there's a lot more that can be drawn upon making these characters more interesting. Like certainly some of them, not all of them. I don't know. So it's for a film because it's difficult because the game is about A to B. So it is a sense a road trip movie. In that the character has to go. They have their goal. And they have this starting point, and they have to travel through various worlds, meeting various people. It's like an Alice in Wonderland story, which is what Mario 1 was based on. It was based on the story of Alice in Wonderland. So I guess play a bit more. If we're going to do an adaptation, I'd sort of play it on that. So this is Alice in Wonderland aspect. So maybe like Mario arrives in this world. He doesn't know where he is, and he doesn't know what's going on. So he has to use his wits, but he knows he needs to get to this upper end. And so he has to kind of work it out along the way, and he meets all the characters along the way. So he can meet Toad, he can meet Yoshi, he can meet these characters along the way. So he forms like a little posse by the time he reaches the final boss. And but I don't know. I was actually trying to think, what could be interesting about this, and it's actually very hard. It's very hard to translate the Mario game into a movie story that would be interesting. So something like that might work, but I was wondering whether to put like a twist on it and have Bowser's been kidnapped, and whilst they think at first, I mean, hooray, this is fine. It actually throws like the kingdom into disarray because now you've got Bowser's minions just wandering around aimlessly because they don't know what to do.
Maybe there's a bit of a power struggle going on between the Koopa kids,
Yeah, so they start trashing up the place. You've got I guess it almost turns the Koopa Troopers and the Goombas into like asylum seekers, I guess. So like
they're getting deep, man.
Yeah, but they're like seeking. They pour into like other areas and like all the toadstools like, oh no, what? Hang on, no, you can't you can't come here. Like, so they're like, oh no, the whole country is in disarray because
allegory. I love it.
So basically, Mario is UKIP. So basically,
Mario is Nigel Farage, is what you're saying.
He has to go and save Koopa, Bowser, so that
you come here, you're taking my job.
And so bring him back so that he can restore the evil kingdom to normality, and they can finally free their Mushroom Kingdom of all these immigrants. So.
That's good. I would watch that. I like it.
Okay. Well,
that's very cool. So are we gonna give it like stars or coins, or are we just gonna say whether we think it's good or not? What do you reckon?
Well, I guess. All right. Well, let's do this out of 5.
Okay.
And out of 5 what's? I'd say it's out of 5 something from the movie.
Okay.
So Super Mario Brothers, I will give it 2 Koopa coins out of 5.
Okay, that's bold. I think I would have to go for the same amount. I'll give it 2 bombs out of 5. I don't know if bombs are higher than Koopa coins or not, but I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that I'd certainly say it doesn't bore me, and it's not sort of insulting. But it's terrible in many ways.
Yeah, I think it is terrible, but it's enough like eye noise and with Yoshi.
Eye noise.
Yoshi.
I like that.
Yoshi. You know, there is enough kind of things going on with enough chase sequences and that kind of thing, and Yoshi. I think Yoshi lifted it from being a 1-star to a 2-star.
Yeah.
So I think there's enough stuff there that would keep people entertained. And as you said, there's been worse films.
No, exactly.
So it's
as no doubt we're gonna see.
Yes.
I think that this is certainly going to be the strangest adaptation that we see.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that because I'm willing to bet, but we're probably going to discover something strange down the line.
Oh, sure. Well, at some point, unfortunately, we are going to hit the shores of Uwe Boll land. Is it Uwe or Uwe?
I think it's U-Bowl?
U-Bowl. I do bowl. But so until then, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I believe that the next podcast film is Double Dragon.
I didn't even know they made a Double Dragon movie, so this is going to be an interesting one for all of us.
I've not seen it either, so this is going to be our first one that neither of us has seen. Very exciting.
All right then. So until then, the closing catchphrase.